Developers are facing a serious crunch in the condo financing market. Banks are wary of backing new luxury projects, and investment funds that are willing to do so are charging a pretty penny for their money. So if you want to build a condo tower, you're going to have to get really creative. Here's how it breaks down. A developer looking to build a condo will typically start with a chunk of senior debt. This is usually a loan from a major bank, although recently other non-traditional lenders have jumped into the space. This is the least risky kind of debt and is backed by the firm's assets. Senior debt boasts the highest priority among the different types of debt, which means it must be paid back first. The senior lender can also place restrictions on the other debt and equity that the developer takes on. For example, it can limit the loan-to-cost ratio on the project. The firm also needs the approval of the senior lender before it receives any other kind of debt or equity. The senior lender will go through processes like Know Your Customer, which is designed to make sure mezzanine loans and preferred equity aren't coming from questionable sources. One level up, we get to the mezzanine debt. The capital is treated like equity on the company's balance sheet and is usually acquired via a holding company. The mezzanine lender receives a pledge of equity as collateral. This means if things go wrong, the mezzanine lender can become the owner of the real estate. Mezzanine debt usually comes from debt funds, private equity funds, or foreign sources. Increasingly, developers are stepping into the space, since it's a way for them to make money without taking on the risk of being the equity stakeholder. And it puts them in the pole position to take control of the property. Then we get to preferred equity. This is a hybrid of equity and debt, in that it looks like equity, but has debt-like features. Preferred equity can be structured more flexibly than a mezzanine loan when it comes to collateral and rates of return. This makes it useful when maneuvering the restrictions that come from senior debt. This kind of equity is subordinate to mezz debt, which makes it riskier. But the lender of preferred equity gets a preferred return over a specified investment term, which is at a higher rate than the interest on the senior debt. If the developer went bankrupt, preferred equity will be repaid for a pre-arranged operating agreement of some kind. This could be the right to take over management of the firm, or even force a sale of the property. Though they are guaranteed a return, they usually receive a lower level of profits than the true equity investors. Preferred equity can come from foreign investors or family individuals. At the top of the deck is true equity, which refers to all other equity involved, like the capital put up by the firm or other owners. So, back to financing a building. Here's how it used to work. Back in 2006, banks would often lend 60 to 70% of the cost of a condo project. In some cases, more than 75%. On average, mezzanine loans would make up roughly another 15%, and the final 10% would be true equity. These days, banks aren't willing to go that far. So while some developers can afford to fill the gap with their own funds, others have to find alternatives that are often more expensive and less secure. This is where it becomes a more complicated stack. Post-2008, fundraising often looks more like this: 45 to 60% senior debt, up to 30% mezzanine debt and preferred equity, and the rest true equity. In the most complex scenarios, the financing for a condo project can include upward of 4 layers of mezzanine debt and preferred equity from various sources. The larger the deal, the more layers you need, and the more specialized the asset type, the more complicated the capital stack. After the crash, complicated financial structures were considered to be over, but until banks become more willing to lend the large sums required, developers who want to build big will have no choice but to embrace complexity.